The human was outnumbered 500 to 1. He called it fair odds. Need you to understand something right from the start. When High Commander Vrel told us we were hunting a single human, we laughed. Actually laughed. 500 of the Kalthreen Empire's finest soldiers tracking one lone mammal through the ruins of Outpost 7. It sounded less like a military operation and more like a bad joke. My name is Kortak, 2nd Lieutenant Kort of the 8th Strike Battalion, and before you ask, yes, I survived what came next. Barely. The fact that I am here recording this testimony for the Imperial archives should tell you exactly how badly things went. But I am getting ahead of myself. It started 3 cycles ago when Outpost 7 went silent. 700 personnel vanished. No distress signal. No final transmission. Nothing. Just eerie, absolute silence where a bustling military installation used to be. High Command sent us to investigate because, well, someone had to go, and we drew the short stick. The dropships descended through Cathar Prime's atmosphere with the usual rattling and shaking that made your breakfast threaten a reappearance. I was strapped in next to my squad leader, a grizzled veteran named Prax, who had more scars than sense. Think it was a plague? He asked, checking his plasma rifle for the 15th time. I shrugged, my forearms adjusting my own gear. Could be, or maybe the ventilation system failed. Humans always said the environmental controls here were garbage. Humans. Prax spat the word like it tasted bad. Why Command even lets them serve in Imperial facilities is beyond me. Weak. Slow. No natural armor. They break if you look at them wrong. I nodded. But something nagged at me. I had served alongside humans before. Back in the border skirmishes near the Vortex Nebula, there was this one. A medic named... Actually, I cannot remember his name, but I remembered his eyes. They had this look in them, like he was always calculating something, always 3 steps ahead. He had pulled me out of a burning transport once, dragged my unconscious body 200 meters under enemy fire. When I asked him why he risked his life for me, he just smiled and said, because someone had to. Humans were strange like that. The dropship touched down on Outpost 7's landing pad with a metallic shriek that set my teeth on edge. The rear hatch dropped and we poured out into the courtyard, weapons raised, scanning for threats. Nothing. The outpost looked normal. Intact. The lights were on. The defensive turrets stood silent but undamaged in their emplacements. The blast doors were sealed, just as they should be. But there was not a single living soul in sight. Spread out, High Commander Vrel's voice crackled through our comms. He was a towering figure, even by Kalthreen standards, with deep purple scales and eyes that glowed amber in the dim light. Squads 1 through 5 sweep the barracks, 6 through 10 secure the command center. Stay sharp, stay together, report anything unusual. Anything unusual? The entire situation was unusual. 700 people did not just disappear. My squad, Squad 4, moved toward the eastern barracks, with practiced efficiency. Prax took point, his rifle sweeping the corridors as we entered the building. The lights flickered occasionally, casting dancing shadows that made my secondary heart rate spike every time. The barracks were empty, beds made, personal effects still in lockers, half-eaten meals in the cafeteria grown cold but not yet rotted. It was like everyone had simply stood up and walked away mid-bite. This is giving me the creeps, muttered Zin, our demolitions expert. She was young, barely past her first molting, and her scales still had that greenish tint that marked inexperience. Stay focused, Prax growled. We moved deeper into the facility. Checked the medical bay, empty. The armory, fully stocked, not a single weapon missing. The engineering section, abandoned, but all equipment functioning normally. Then we found the security office. The door was sealed, which was odd because most of the facility had been left open. Prax tried the manual override, but the panel sparked and died. Zin, crack it, he ordered. Zin set a small charge on the lock mechanism. We stepped back, covered our auditory organs, and the charge popped with a sharp crack. The door slid open, smoke curling from the melted lock. Inside, the security monitors were still running. 20 screens showing various angles of the outpost, all empty corridors and silent rooms. But one screen was different. It showed static, nothing but gray and white noise. Prax leaned closer, squinting at the dead screen. What sector is that? I checked the control panel. Sub-level 3, the detention block. We all looked at each other. The detention block. Where they kept prisoners. Where they kept... Command. This is Squad 4. Prax's voice was steady, but I could hear the tension underneath. We have a situation. Detention block is showing system failure. Requesting permission to investigate. There was a long pause, filled with static. Then Vrella's voice came back sharp and commanding. Permission granted. All squads converge on sub-level 3. We may have a containment breach. A containment breach. Right, because this day could not possibly get worse. The descent to sub-level 3 felt longer than it should have. The stairwell lights were dimmer down here, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. Our footsteps echoed off the metal walls, creating a rhythmic clanging that made conversation impossible. The detention block entrance was open. The heavy blast door, designed to withstand siege weapons, had been forced back into its housing. The metal was warped, twisted, as if something impossibly strong had simply pulled it open like you might open a food container. What the hell did that? Zin whispered. Prax did not answer. He just raised his rifle and stepped through the doorway. The detention block was a long corridor with cells on either side. Transparent force fields hummed in their frames, but the cells were empty. All of them. 20 cells. All empty. Except the last one. The force field was down, the door was open, and someone had carved words into the wall above it, deep gouges in the reinforced metal that must have taken incredible strength. The words read, "E is free." "Who is free?" Zin asked, her voice trembling slightly. I was already accessing my wrist terminal, pulling up the detention block records. My blood ran cold when I saw the last entry. Cell 20. Occupied 4 cycles ago, prisoner designation human. Name Kade Thorne. Crime multiple counts of unauthorized lethal force against Imperial personnel. Status, awaiting execution. Prax stared at me. A human? That is what has everyone so spooked. One human? But I was reading further. And what I found made my scales itch with unease. Prax. Listen to this. Kade Thorne. Former Human Special Operations. Unit designation Ghost Battalion. Mission record 217 confirmed hostile eliminations. 43 solo operations behind enemy lines. Survived 16 separate ambushes. Classified psychological evaluation summary. Subject shows complete lack of fear response. Extreme tactical intelligence, and, quote, an almost pathological need to survive against impossible odds, end quote. The silence that followed was heavy. Then Prax laughed. Not a happy laugh. A nervous, disbelieving laugh. You are telling me that one human soldier is responsible for this? For 700 trained military personnel vanishing? I looked at him. The records say he was scheduled for execution because he killed 8 guards during a routine cell inspection. Killed them with his bare hands, Prax, no weapons. And that was before he escaped. Command needs to hear this. Prax reached for his comm unit. That was when the lights went out. Not just the lights in our corridor. The lights everywhere. The entire facility plunged into darkness so absolute it felt like being swallowed. Emergency lighting should have kicked in immediately, but nothing happened. We were left standing in the dark, breathing hard, weapons raised toward nothing. Then the emergency lights did come on, but they were red, deep blood red, bathing everything in a crimson glow that made the detention block look like something from a nightmare. And in that red light, we heard it. A voice, human, male, coming through the facility's speaker system. Good evening, gentlemen, ladies, whatever you are. I hope you do not mind, but I have taken the liberty of rearranging your accommodations. The voice was calm. Too calm, like someone discussing the weather. Not someone who had apparently killed 700 people and trapped 500 more in a dark facility. Allow me to introduce myself properly. My name is Kade Thorne. You might know me as Prisoner 20. Or maybe you have heard the nickname my former squad gave me, the Reaper. Personally, I always found that a bit dramatic, but you cannot choose your own nickname, can you? Prax was frantically working his comm unit, but all he got was static. We were cut off. Isolated. The voice continued. Now, I imagine you have questions. Where are the facility personnel? They are alive, mostly, locked in the cargo holds at the northern perimeter. I am not a monster, after all. I just needed them out of the way while I prepared for your arrival. Prepared? He knew we were coming? You see, I have been here for 4 cycles. 4 long, boring cycles with nothing to do but think, plan, and wait. The Kalthreen Empire has rules, you see. You could not just execute me immediately. Due process, appeals, all that bureaucratic nonsense. So I waited, and while I waited, I learned everything about this facility, every corridor, every system, every weakness. There was a pause, and I could swear I heard him laughing softly. Then I learned you were coming. 500 soldiers, a whole strike battalion, to investigate a silent outpost. And I thought, you know what? That sounds like fun. That sounds like a challenge. Prax grabbed my shoulder, his claws digging in. We need to move, now, back to the surface. We ran. All of us. Sprinting back through the corridors, weapon lights cutting through the red-tinted darkness. Behind us, that voice echoed through the speakers, following us. I am going to give you a sporting chance. Really, I am not unreasonable. Here are the rules. You have until dawn to find me and kill me. That gives you, let me check, approximately 8 hours. If you succeed, congratulations, you all go home. If you fail, let us just say I have some frustrations to work out. We burst into the main corridor where other squads were converging, all looking as panicked as we felt. High Commander Vrel was there, his amber eyes blazing. Report, he barked. 5 different squad leaders tried to speak at once. Vrel silenced them with a gesture. One at a time. Kort, you found the detention block. What did you find? I explained quickly, laying out everything. The escaped prisoner. The human? Kade Thorne. The ghost battalion. Vrel listened, his expression growing darker with every word. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. 1 human, he said slowly, against 500 of us. Sir, his record. I started. I do not care about his record. Vrel's voice was sharp. He is flesh and blood. He bleeds. He tires. He is 1, and we are 500. We have superior numbers, superior firepower, and superior training. This ends now. He activated his command channel, broadcasting to all squads, all units. Switch to search and destroy protocol. Target is a single human male. Designation Kade Thorne. Shoot on sight. No warnings. No mercy. I want this facility swept level by level, room by room. Report all contact immediately. The squads began to organize, and I felt a small measure of relief. Vrel was right. Numbers mattered. 500 trained soldiers against 1 human. The odds were overwhelming. That was when the first squad went silent. Squad 7 had been assigned to the power plant, with orders to restore full lighting and communications. 12 soldiers, led by a competent veteran named Grix. They checked in, reported entering the facility, and then, nothing. Squad 7 report. Vrel's voice was tight. Grix, respond. Static. All units, Squad 7 is unresponsive. Squad 8, move to the power plant and investigate. Exercise extreme caution. Squad 8 moved out. We watched them go. 12 more soldiers disappearing into the red-lit corridors. 3 minutes later we heard screaming over the comms, not battle cries, not orders, just raw, primal screaming. The sound of people in absolute terror. It lasted maybe 10 seconds. Then silence. Vrel stared at his comm unit like it had betrayed him. What just happened? No one answered. No one knew. All squads, fall back to the main courtyard, defensive positions. Now, we retreated, pulling back to the open space of the landing pad where the dropship sat. It felt safer out here, with open sky above us and room to maneuver. Vrel organized us into overlapping fields of fire, every angle covered. He is just 1 human, Vrel said, but his voice lacked conviction now. He cannot take all of us. I wanted to believe him. I really did. That was when the first explosion rocked the facility. The eastern barracks erupted in a fireball that lit up the night like a second sun. The shockwave knocked half of us off our feet, and debris rained down across the courtyard. Before we could recover, a second explosion hit the armory, then a third at the vehicle depot. He is destroying the facility, someone shouted. No, not destroying, hurting. He was cutting off our escape routes, limiting our options. The dropships were still intact, but now we were pinned between burning buildings with nowhere to go except deeper into the outpost. And that was exactly where he wanted us. Vrel was shouting orders, trying to restore order, but panic was spreading through the ranks like wildfire. These were trained soldiers. veterans of a dozen campaigns, and they were losing their composure because of one human. That was when I saw him. Just for a second, a shadow moving across a rooftop, silhouetted against the flames, human-shaped, moving with a fluid grace that seemed impossible for something so outnumbered. Then he was gone. There, I pointed, my weapon coming up. Rooftop, eastern quadrant. 20 rifles swung toward the spot, plasma bolts lighting up the night. The rooftop exploded in a shower of sparks and molten metal. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing there. Did we get him? Zin asked. No one answered. We all knew better. The speakers crackled to life again. That same calm, measured voice. Not bad. You almost had me there, almost. But here is the thing about hunting humans. We are persistence predators. We do not give up. We do not quit. And we really do like being locked in cages. A pause. You wanted to execute me for defending myself, for killing guards who tried to beat me for entertainment, for surviving when your empire wanted me dead. So now, we play by my rules. And my rules are simple. Another pause. Longer this time. Building tension like a physical thing you could feel pressing down on you. Run. What happened next is hard to describe. Not because I do not remember. I remember every terrible second. But because it was chaos. Pure, unfiltered chaos. Squads began reporting contact all over the facility. Not sustained firefights. Hit-and-run attacks. A shadow in the corridor. A figure on the catwalk. By the time you turned to fire, he was gone. And someone in your squad was down. Vrel tried to maintain cohesion, but it was like trying to hold water in your hands. Soldiers broke formation, running for cover. Some tried to reach the dropships. The pilots fired up the engines, but then the landing pad erupted with shaped charges that had been carefully placed beneath the surface. The dropships toppled, their hulls cracking, fuel lines rupturing. We were trapped. Squad by squad, our numbers dwindled. 12 soldiers here, 8 there, not killed. At least not all of them. Wounded, incapacitated, dragged away into the darkness. And through it all, that human voice kept speaking over the facility speakers. Sometimes helpful, sometimes mocking, always calm. Squad 11, you might want to check that corridor to your left. Yes, the dark one. That is where your friends went. Oh, Squad 3, did you really think the service ducts were unmonitored? Bold strategy. Points for creativity. I count 473 still standing. Better odds than I started with, but we are getting there. He was keeping count. Actively keeping count. Like this was a game to him. Prax grabbed my arm, his scales pale with fear. We need to get out. Forget orders. Forget the mission. We need to leave. But how? The dropships were destroyed. The communications were jammed. And somewhere in this maze of corridors and shadows was a human who had spent 4 cycles planning exactly this scenario. High Commander Vrol rallied what remained of us in the main command center. Maybe 300 soldiers left. 300 out of 500, in less than 3 hours. We hold here, Vel said, but his voice was hoarse. Defensive positions, overlapping fields of fire. He has to come to us eventually. And when he does, we end this. But would he come to us? Or would he just wait us out, picking us off one by one until there was no one left? I found myself thinking about that human medic again. The one who saved me. His calm determination. His absolute refusal to give up even when everything said he should. I wondered if Kade Thorne had that same quality. That same stubborn, impossible-to-kill resilience that humans seem to have baked into their DNA. The answer, I was learning, was yes. And it was terrifying. Hours passed. The sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Dawn. The deadline Thorne had set, and as the first rays of sunlight broke through the windows of the command center, the doors burst open. There he was, Kade Thorne. The Reaper. The Ghost. He looked ordinary. Average height for a human, maybe 180 centimeters, dark hair matted with sweat and blood, not all of it his, wearing a scavenged Imperial uniform that was torn and stained, no armor, just cloth and determination. But his eyes. His eyes were the eyes of someone who had stopped caring about death a long time ago, who had looked into the abyss and decided to make friends with it. He held a plasma rifle in one hand, a combat knife in the other, and he smiled. Morning, gentlemen. Hope you slept well. Now then, shall we finish this? 300 weapons pointed at him. 300 soldiers ready to fire, and Kade Thorne just stood there, still smiling. The funny thing about your empire, he said conversationally, as if we were discussing lunch plans rather than standing at gunpoint, is that you never learned the most important lesson about humans. We do not fight fair. We do not fight with honor. We fight to win. He raised his rifle. And I always win. That was when the charges he had planted throughout the command center detonated. I do not remember much after that, just light and sound and pain. When I woke up, I was lying in the rubble. My left arm was broken. My scales were burned. But I was alive. Around me, the command center was destroyed. Bodies everywhere. Groaning, crying, some not moving at all. And standing in the middle of it all, silhouetted against the rising sun, was Kade Thorne. He was hurt. Blood ran down his face. His left shoulder hung at an odd angle. But he was standing, still standing. He saw me looking and walked over, crouched down beside me. Up close, I could see his eyes properly. They were not the eyes of a monster. They were just tired. So incredibly tired. You are Lieutenant Kort, he said. Not a question. A statement. You served in the Vortex Nebula campaign. You worked with a human medic named Tyler Banks. I stared at him. How did he know that? Tyler was my friend. Thorne continued. He told me about you, about how he saved you, about how you asked him why he risked his life. He stood up, wincing. I am going to let you live, Kort, you and anyone else who survives this. Not because I am merciful, but because I want you to tell your empire what happened here. I want them to know that humans do not break. We do not quit, and if you try to execute us for defending ourselves, we will show you exactly what that survival instinct can do. He turned to walk away, then paused. Oh, and tell them Kade Thorne sends his regards, and that 500 to 1. Those are fair odds. For you. Then he was gone, vanished into the facility, leaving behind 300 wounded soldiers and one very important lesson. Never, ever, underestimate a human. The human was outnumbered 500 to 1. He called it fair odds. You know what the worst part about surviving a massacre is? The silence afterward. Not the screaming. Not the explosions. Not the sound of plasma fire or the crunch of metal giving way. No, the silence is what gets you. Because in that silence you have to face what just happened. You have to accept that you survived when so many others did not. And you have to figure out what comes next. Lay there in the ruins of the command center for maybe 10 minutes after Kade Thorne walked away. Could have been 10 hours for all I knew. Time gets weird when your brain is trying to process trauma. Around me, the survivors were slowly coming to. Some were crying, some were checking their wounds. Some were just staring at nothing. Their minds gone to wherever minds go when reality becomes too much to handle. High Commander Vre was alive. Barely. His left side was crushed under a support beam, his armor cracked like an egg. His amber eyes found mine, and in them I saw something I had never seen before. Defeat. Complete and total defeat. Yet, help. He wheezed. Help. Right. As if help was just going to walk through the door. But then, impossibly, it did. The cargo hold doors at the northern perimeter opened, and out came the original facility personnel. All 700 of them. They were disheveled, confused, and more than a little angry, but they were alive. Thorne had locked them away before we even arrived, removing them from the equation entirely. Among them was a medical team, and they quickly spread out across the facility, treating the wounded. A doctor, a Kalthreen female named Sella, came to me first. She had kind eyes, the sort that had seen too much suffering and decided to fight against it anyway. Easy, Lieutenant, she said, running a scanner over my injuries. Broken arm, second-degree burns, mild concussion. You will live. Others? I managed to croak out. Her expression darkened. Out of 500, we have 237 survivors, most of them injured. 43 critical. We are doing what we can. 237. Out of 500. One human had taken down over half a battalion in a single night. The numbers were impossible. Absurd. And yet here we were.
Where is he?
I asked. Thorne? Where did he go? Sella shook her head. We found a dropship missing from the northern hangar. One we did not even know existed. Hidden in a maintenance bay, fueled and ready. He must have been planning this from the moment they locked him up. Of course he had a backup plan. Of course he did. Humans always had backup plans. And backup plans for their backup plans. Sela injected me with something that made the pain fade to a dull throb. The Imperial fleet is inbound. They will be here within the hour. Try to rest. Rest? Sure. I would just take a nice nap surrounded by the evidence of the worst military disaster in recent Kalthreen history. No problem. But I could not rest. My mind kept replaying the night. Every moment. Every mistake. We had gone in arrogant, confident, treating this like a simple cleanup operation, and we had been systematically dismantled by someone who understood something we did not. Warfare is not about honor. It is not about fair fights or noble sacrifices. It is about winning. By any means necessary. The Imperial fleet arrived exactly when Sela said they would. 3 cruisers and a dreadnought. Enough firepower to level a small moon. Reinforcements poured into the facility, securing the perimeter, evacuating the wounded. I was loaded onto a medical transport along with dozens of others, all of us silent, all of us trying to process what had happened. As the transport lifted off, I looked down at Outpost 7. From up here, the damage was even more obvious. Burn marks, collapsed structures. The landing pad was a crater. It looked like a war zone, which I suppose it was. Admiral Threx met us on the flagship. He was old, even by Kalthreen standards, his scales dulled with age but his mind still sharp. He took one look at the survivors and his expression went cold. "Explain," he said simply. So I did. I told him everything. The empty facility, the escaped prisoner, the voice over the speakers, the systematic destruction of our forces, Kade Thorne and his impossible victory. Threx listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. A single human, he finally said, reduced an entire strike battalion to rubble. "Yes, sir," and then let the survivors live. As a message. "Yes, sir." Threx turned to stare out the viewport at the planet below. "Do you know why the Empire uses humans in our military, Lieutenant Kort?" I shook my head. "Because they are cheap, expendable. They die easily, they breed quickly, and they are desperate enough for citizenship that they will do almost anything we ask. We use them as cannon fodder, as labor, as whatever we need, and we never, not once, considered what would happen if they decided to stop cooperating." He turned back to me. "This Kade Thorne, he is a message from humanity, a reminder that we have been underestimating them. And now Command wants to make an example of him." My blood went cold. "An example, sir?" "They are assembling a task force. 3 companies, 1,500 soldiers, elite units, the best we have. Their mission is to hunt down Thorne and bring him in. Dead or alive, preferably dead. 1,500 soldiers. 3 times what we had, and I had seen what Thorne did to 500. What made Command think more numbers would solve the problem? Sir, with respect, I do not think more soldiers are the answer." Threx raised an eye-ridge. "Oh? And what would you suggest, Lieutenant?" "I suggest we let him go." He made his point. He wanted to show us that humans are not to be taken lightly. Message received. Let him disappear. That is not how the Empire works, Kort. We cannot allow this insult to stand. If one human can embarrass us like this, others will get ideas. We need to respond with overwhelming force. Overwhelming force. The same strategy that had failed so spectacularly at Outpost 7. But I was just a lieutenant. Who was I to question admirals and high command? "Understood, sir." "Good. Because you are going with them." I stared at him. "Sir, you are one of the few people who has seen Thorne up close and lived to tell about it. The task force commander wants you as an advisor. You ship out in 2 days. 2 days. 2 days to recover from one nightmare before diving into another. Perfect." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of debriefings, medical treatments, and sleepless nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Thorne standing in the ruins of the command center, blood running down his face, that tired smile on his lips. I heard his voice saying those words, 500 to 1, fair odds. For you. The task force assembled at the Imperial naval station above Cathar Prime. 1,500 soldiers from 6 different elite units. The Crimson Guard, the Void Walkers, the Steel Talons, names that struck fear into enemies across the galaxy. And leading them was Commander Vex, a legend in his own right. 200 confirmed kills, 50 successful operations. a tactical genius who had never lost a battle. I met him in the briefing room aboard the command ship. He was tall, heavily scarred, and radiated the kind of confidence that came from a lifetime of victories. "Lieutenant Kort," he greeted me, his voice a low rumble. "I have read your report. Impressive survival instinct." "Thank you, sir. Tell me about Thorne." "Not the official report. Your personal assessment." I thought carefully before answering. "He is smart. Smarter than anyone gave him credit for. He does not fight like a soldier. He fights like a predator, patient, methodical, and he does not care about rules or honor or anything except winning." Vex nodded slowly. "And how do we beat him?" "Honestly, sir, I do not know if we can." His eyes narrowed. "Explain." "We keep throwing numbers at him. But numbers are what he expects. He plans for overwhelming force. He thrives on impossible odds. If we want to beat him, we need to think differently, such as not fighting him at all. He wants to be hunted. He wants the challenge. What if we deny him that? What if we make him irrelevant instead of legendary?" Vex was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. Not a mocking laugh. A genuine, appreciative laugh. "I like you, Kort. You think outside the box. But orders are orders. Command wants Thorne dead, and we are the ones who will make it happen. However, I will keep your advice in mind. Sometimes the best way to win is not to play the game the enemy expects." The hunt for Kade Thorne took us across 3-star systems. He had stolen the dropship and vanished, but intelligence was good at their job. They tracked his fuel purchases, his supply runs, his communications. Every lead took us closer, or so we thought. In reality, Thorne was leading us on a chase. Every clue was deliberate. Every sighting was planned. He was studying us just like he had studied Outpost 7, learning our patterns, our tactics, our weaknesses. It took me 2 weeks to realize it. We were not hunting him. He was hunting us. I tried to tell Vex, but he was convinced we were closing in. The next lead took us to a mining colony on the edge of the Kessler Belt. A rough place, full of rough people, the kind who did not ask questions and did not give answers. We landed with the full task force. 1,500 soldiers spread through the colony, searching for one human. The locals watched us with barely concealed contempt. They did not like the Empire, did not like soldiers, and especially did not like having their lives disrupted. "He was here," Vex said, reviewing the intelligence reports. 3 days ago, someone matching his description bought supplies and fuel." "Sir," I said carefully, "this feels like a trap." "Everything feels like a trap to you, Kort. Sometimes a lead is just a lead." But my instincts were screaming. Something was wrong. The colony was too quiet, the locals too calm, like they knew something we did not. That night the attacks began, not on us. On the colony. Someone was sabotaging the mining equipment, cutting power lines, starting fires. Small things. Annoying things. Things that made the colonists angry. At the Empire. At us. Because the attacks were being blamed on Imperial soldiers. Evidence planted, witnesses coming forward. Within hours the colony was on the verge of riot, and we were caught in the middle. Vix tried to restore order, but it was like trying to stop a landslide. The colonists wanted us gone. Now, and they were not above using force to make their point. We withdrew to the ships, and that was when I saw him, Kade Thorne. Standing on a rooftop, watching us retreat. He was not hiding, was not trying to blend in. He just stood there, visible, confident, and he waved, actually waved, like we were old friends seeing each other across a crowded room. Then he was gone. "Did you see that?" I asked Prax, who had been assigned to the task force as well. "See what, Thorne?" He was right there. Prax scanned the rooftops. "I do not see anything." "Kort, you sure you are not imagining things?" Was I, maybe. But I did not think so. Vex was furious about the colony situation. We had been played, manipulated into making the locals hate us even more than they already did. And Thorne had orchestrated the entire thing without firing a single shot. "He is making fools of us," Vex snarled. "Every time we get close, he slips away. Every time we think we have him, it turns out we have nothing. Maybe that is the point," I said. "Maybe he is trying to teach us the same lesson he taught at Outpost 7, that we cannot win by playing his game." "Then what do you suggest?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. What would make a human stop running? What would make someone like Kade Thorne come to us instead of us chasing him? He is trying to make a point, I said slowly, about how humans are treated by the Empire, about how we use them and discard them. What if we acknowledged that? What if we offered him something? You want to negotiate with a wanted fugitive. I want to end this without losing more soldiers. Sir? Vex stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Draft a message. Let us see if your human is willing to talk. The message was simple, direct, an offer to meet. No tricks, no traps, just a conversation between two soldiers who were tired of fighting a pointless war. We broadcast it on every frequency, every channel, and then we waited. 2 days later, we got a response. Old mining station, Sector 7. Tomorrow at noon. Come alone, Commander Vex. Or do not come at all. Vex considered it. He wants me alone. That is suicide. Or it is what we have been asking for. A chance to talk. You really think he will negotiate? I think he will listen. Whether he agrees to anything is another matter. Vex made his decision. I am going. But you are coming with me, Kort. 2 against 1. Fair odds. I almost laughed at that. Fair odds. Humans had warped my entire understanding of what that phrase meant. The old mining station was exactly that. Old. Abandoned decades ago when the minerals ran out. Now it was just a skeleton of metal and rust, floating in the black. We took a shuttle, just the two of us. No weapons, no backup. As requested, the station was dark inside, lit only by emergency lighting that flickered occasionally. Our footsteps echoed off the metal floors as we made our way to the central hub. Kade Thorne was waiting for us. He looked worse than when I had last seen him. Thinner, more scars, the kind of wear that came from living on the run. But his eyes were still sharp, still alert. Commander Vex, Lieutenant Kort, thanks for coming. Vex stepped forward. You wanted to talk, so talk. Thorne leaned against a railing, casual, relaxed. I am going to tell you a story about a human soldier who served the Kalthreen Empire faithfully for 15 years, who fought in 8 campaigns, who saved Kalthreen lives, followed Kalthreen orders, and believed that if he proved himself he would be accepted, respected. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. That soldier was betrayed. His unit was sent on a suicide mission because command did not want to risk Kalthreen lives. Of the 200 humans sent, 12 survived, and when those 12 asked why they were sent to die, they were told it was because they were expendable. The silence was heavy. One of those 12 was named Tyler Banks. You might remember him. Kortat. He was a medic. A good one. He saved your life in the Vortex Nebula. My heart's clenched. Tyler. I remembered him. Tyler did not make it. Thorne continued. He died 6 months after that mission. Not in combat. In a detention cell. Because he refused to keep quiet about what happened. Because he demanded justice. And the Empire does not like humans who demand things. He pushed off the railing. I was in the cell next to his. I heard him die, heard the guards beat him until he stopped breathing. And I decided right then that I was done serving an empire that treated us like garbage. Vex's expression was unreadable. What do you want, Thorne? I want the Empire to leave me alone. I want to disappear. And I want you to stop hunting every human who decides they have had enough. We are not your property. We are not your slaves. Treat us like partners, or we will show you what happens when you push us too far. And if we refuse, Thorne shrugged, then we keep playing this game. You send more soldiers. I take them down. Eventually someone wins. But how many more need to die before you realize this is pointless? Vex was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice measured. I cannot promise anything. I am a soldier, not a politician. But I will take your message to command. If you give me your word, you will stop attacking Imperial forces. You have my word. As long as they stop coming after me. They stared at each other, two warriors from different worlds, both tired of a war neither wanted. One question, Vex said. Outpost 7. How did you do it? How did one human beat 500 trained soldiers? Thorne smiled. You want the secret? It is simple. You were not fighting a human. You were fighting a ghost, a shadow, an idea. You cannot kill an idea with plasma rifles and overwhelming numbers. You can only kill it by stop believing in it. He walked past us toward the exit. Tell command that Kade Thorne is dead. Tell them you hunted me down and ended the threat. Give them their victory, and in return I disappear forever. He paused at the door. Oh, and Kort. Tyler always spoke highly of you. Said you were one of the good ones. Do not prove him wrong." Then he was gone. Vanished into the darkness of the station like he had never been there at all. Vex and I stood there in silence. "What do we tell them?" I asked. Vex sighed. "We tell them the human is dead. Mission accomplished. Target eliminated. But he is not. No. But he is gone. And sometimes that is enough." We returned to the fleet. Filed our reports. Kade Thorne. Wanted fugitive. Eliminated in a firefight at an abandoned mining station. Body lost to the void. Mission success. Command accepted it. They wanted closure, not truth. They got their victory even if it was a lie. The task force was disbanded. The soldiers returned to their units, and I went back to my regular posting, trying to forget the human who had taught me the most important lesson of my military career. Never underestimate anyone, especially humans. 6 months later, I was promoted to captain. New assignment. New responsibilities. But I never forgot Outpost 7, never forgot the ghost who haunted my nightmares. Then one day I received a message. Anonymous. Untraceable. It contained a single photo. A human male sitting on a beach somewhere, drink in hand watching a sunset. His face was different. Surgery. Probably. New identity. New life. But I recognized the eyes. And written on the back of the photo in neat handwriting, "Fair odds. Thanks for keeping your word. Tell Vex I said hello." I burned the photo. Deleted the message. Pretended I never saw it. Because some secrets are worth keeping. And some soldiers deserve their peace. The Empire still uses humans in its military. Still treats them as expendable. But now there are whispers. Stories. Legend. About a human who fought 500 soldiers and won. About a ghost who reminded the galaxy that humans are not to be underestimated. About fair odds and impossible victories. They call him the Reaper. The ghost of Outpost 7. The human who beat the Empire. And somewhere out there on some distant beach, Kade Thorne is probably smiling, knowing that his message was heard, that his sacrifice meant something, that humans everywhere are just a little bit safer because one man refused to give up. 500 to 1. He called it fair odds. And you know what? Maybe he was right. When you are fighting for survival, for dignity, for the right to be treated as an equal instead of a tool, numbers do not matter. Weapons do not matter. All that matters is the refusal to quit. The determination to stand up and say enough is enough. Humans have that in spades. It is woven into their DNA, burned into their souls. They are survivors, fighters. And when you push them too far, they push back harder than you ever imagined possible. The Empire learned that lesson the hard way, at Outpost 7, through Kade Thorne, through one soldier who decided that dying on his feet was better than living on his knees. I carry that lesson with me every day, in every decision I make, in how I treat the humans under my command, in how I view the galaxy and our place in it. Because Kade Thorne was right about one thing. We were not fighting a human that night, we were fighting an idea. The idea that anyone, no matter how small or weak or outnumbered, can stand up and fight back, can win against impossible odds, can change the world. And that idea is bulletproof. So here is my testimony for the Imperial Archives. Here is the truth about what happened at Outpost 7, about the human who beat us, about the lesson we learned. Respect your allies, respect your enemies, and never ever underestimate a human who has nothing left to lose. Because 500 to 1, those are not the odds you think they are. Not when the one is human, not when the one has decided that today is the day they stop running and start fighting back. But fair odds for us. And may the stars help anyone who forgets that.